Okay, so this video is kind of impromptu. It is me just kind of breaking down a project that I'm working on while I'm not currently working on tutorials or teaching classes. Some of you may know that I'm doing my master's degree, and I've chosen for my master's degree to work on a game. This game, at the root of it, has sort of a Zelda-esque inspiration, sort of an early Zelda, just from the idea of a top-down view and the idea that you're basically a lone character walking around in a large world, trying to upgrade yourself so that you can accomplish a goal. So classic kind of adventure game, but from a sci-fi point of view. This character here, he upgrades himself from things that he finds in the environment, including sort of scrapping from enemies that he defeats to kind of upgrade his skill sets. So for this part of my master's project, it was creating sort of some promo art, looking for a way to create something interesting that would show off the game. And so I figured a start screen would be a good place to start that project. So the first thing is, of course, doing a notan sketch. A notan sketch is basically working in value alone. So you start with a dark value, and you move back, getting lighter and lighter and lighter, using big shapes initially, and then going back over those shapes with other values in between to kind of refine what you see here. So I added some gradients and refined it by adding little details, some text across here, scribbling in the semblance of sort of clouds, putting in the rain, which is basically just blurred noise at this juncture, until I'd done a few sketches and came up with what I liked. So because I like this one, this is the one I went forward with. The next stage, of course, is refining that concept. So doing colors. This is a model that I did in Blender, which I'm still in the process of really getting comfortable with. And I rendered that out and then started adding the rest of it into the background. So again, using some of the same tricks to do the rain and the fogs painted in. And for some of the junk piles, I just took some quick images that I had just to kind of throw in the background. Painted up the forms. I have a technique that I use for doing greeble in Photoshop, which is super simple and easy, and it gives a fairly nice effect. And then just like grunge textures and stuff like that. So once I finalized this as a concept, I thought, okay, that looks pretty good. That's what I'll do. So the next stage is, placing things in the scene. So of course, the model that I put together in Blender, brought in here, and created a quick, simple shape for the background, which again I textured up in Photoshop, because it's nice and super easy to do this as sort of a flat surface. And again, it's that greeble technique. It's not hard to do. It's basically a brush and a couple of filters, and then you get a nice pattern, and then you just throw some photos from grungy walls that you find in your environment, take photos, adjust them, and then you get your stains and other things and other effects, junk and trash piles for areas, and then just paint the gash in the side of it. And I added on top of it some just different fire shapes that are on a separate layer that were saved as a separate texture. And I'm using a deformation technique with sort of a Perlin noise to create this movement effect. The particles, the rain particles, are Niagara, but it took a while to work out the shaders so that they showed up just in the light instead of kind of everywhere, and you really start to see them when the flash comes in. The flash is again a light with a a function that I created to create sort of this timing for when the flash would go off, which was interesting. I have a number of different planes in here. I'm using the internal 3D noise pattern so that I have each one basically becomes a different, unique slice of that. So that gives me the little bits of mist, and they were a lot cheaper than doing particles, which is what I started with. And honestly, there's been a lot of trial and error. Well, I'll try something, and then I find out it's too expensive, and I think, okay, how can I do this a little bit cheaper? I want to keep everything within a certain render target. So one of the other things was doing the ground, and I thought I was going to spend a lot of time sculpting a bunch of rocks and whatnot, and I thought I'm going to do a quick experiment just to kind of fill something in, and then when I need to do the rocks, I'll do the rocks later. And I was happily surprised that my technique of taking two different Perlin noises, one used to sort of UV distort the other with some additional controls, allowed me to build this rocky terrain. So it's basically just, Photoshop render clouds. And I got this from it, and I got this from it. It's two variations of that same process, just used in different ways. And I didn't have to model anything. This is just straight up unreal. So yeah, lots of little planes, little sort of UV distortion techniques, and then I'll put into this cinematic camera where I've got some chromatic aberration, I've got some depth of field on there, some vignette, playing with sort of the lighting values, just to get this overall look. So layering in all these different effects and different details gave me this final look. And for the game itself, I'm still working on that in the background, where I'm working on things like AI, which I never thought I would be working on. The process of working with behavior trees and trying to make characters pay attention to all sorts of stuff automatically was never something that I thought I would be doing, but it's kind of fun. And just coming up with a bunch of solutions to visual problems, writing lots of documents on gameplay and story, and developing it out. So it's a pretty hefty project, and that's what eats a huge amount of my time outside of me teaching classes. And that's put a bit of a damper on some of the tutorials that I've been putting together, but I figure if I can lean some of the tutorials towards some of the project that I'm currently working on, it might be possible for me to put things together. So if there's something in this project that you've seen from what I've been doing here that interests you, you can drop it in the comments, and maybe I can put something together as a quick tutorial on those certain aspects. And possibly as other things come up, I may just go ahead and put some tutorials together anyways. So anyways, hopefully this has been at least slightly interesting, and if not, then I will see you in the next video. Okay, cheers.